Bismillah. So welcome to this video. You may be a viewer of this channel or you may be someone new. This is going to be more of a conversational video. I prepared some brief notes just to guide us along, but this is going to be a complete guide to what spirituality is and what the aim and goal of spirituality is. In particular, I imagine if you are watching this video, you are already someone who has some idea of spirituality. You are someone who wants to be spiritual, someone who has an idea that there is something deeper to reality, that there is something deeper to reality, to existence, than the surface of phenomena, than our mere body, than the thoughts that simply emerge in our minds. There's something deeper to all this. There is something deeper to us than our minds and our bodies. There is something deeper to this entire world and the cosmos, the principle of all its beauty and luster, also the principle which governs what is good and bad. There's a meaning to what happens, a meaning to the beauty of life, a meaning to the suffering, and that there is a way to come into alignment with the fundamental and ultimate nature of reality, whatever that may be, and that alignment to this fundamental reality, that being one with it, is the ultimate path towards peace and happiness and fulfillment. And that is what the purpose of our life is. And perhaps that's a mouthful, but I can say with a high degree of confidence that if you are watching this video with genuine authenticity, that you most likely believe most of, if not all of what I said. And not just that, you probably believe it with a very high degree of conviction. It's probably one of the most fundamental things that you do believe. But I mean, why is there a thing called spirituality? Why do I make these videos? Why do we read books and study? Because the brutality of life, just how hard life is, how meaningless it can seem at times, how confusing, the anguish, not only physical but mental and spiritual that we go through, often seemingly contradicts this absolute principle of meaning. That is what the spiritual path is about. It's about going through this. In many religions, we speak of the idea of straightness or righteousness, right? Being righteous, being pious. You have to remove all these ideas you have in your mind about looking a certain way or doing a certain thing or having a certain image. The real meaning of righteousness, being good, being a good person, is some idea of being straight and going utterly and absolutely aligned with this foundation. So, to begin this, I want to do a fairly brief meditation together. So, to begin, just be as comfortable as possible. You can sit in your chair while you do this. You can lie down if you like. You can even lie on your bed. I just want you to go into a position where you are completely at rest. And do make sure that you create a place of rest. And this is a general principle. When you want to do spiritual practice, make sure that you are completely still and at peace and comfortable. So have your own space, have your own time, lock your door or your house, whatever. Create a nice atmosphere. If you need some ambient music, go for that. If you need some scented candles, go for that. Make sure the place is clean and empty and open. And I can do this just sitting while recording, but just be at ease. Allow your muscles to loosen up. And this will only take a few minutes in total. But this is a general path of meditation which you can do for longer periods. You can even pause this video as I speak and take 10 minutes for each part, even longer. You can do this over hours if you so wished. But there, drop your muscles, relax your body, and just bring your attention to the breath. Just breathe a few times. Don't go deep. Don't go shallow. Don't do anything. Just be conscious and aware of the fact that you are breathing. And now with each breath, as you breathe in, as you breathe out and push air out of you and draw it inwards, do that action of breathing consciously. And now start to deepen the breath for a few times. And again, you can pause the video if you want to and do this for a bit longer. But now as your body is completely relaxed, I can feel my hands, I can feel my feet, I can feel my spine and my skull and my head. And I'm completely rooted and grounded like an ancient tree rooted deep into the depths of the earth. I am one with my environment. I am completely at rest and still and at peace with my surrounding. And I breathe really deep. And as I breathe, I draw the world into me and become one with the world. And breathe it out and give that life back to the world. And as I breathe slowly and deeply, I fill myself up inwardly. And now draw awareness into your insideness. What is inside of you? Become aware that you are not just some body outside. You are not just a form, but you have this inward world. And that can just be by literally feeling your chest and your plenum, feeling the air draw and expand your chest and your belly. And as I am grounded and relaxed, it is as if my arms, my legs, and my head are branches of a tree growing out from my core. And as I breathe, even my brain and my thoughts, like a plant, they coil back into the seed. And try to literally visualize your entire body like a plant growing in reverse and going back into a seed. And this seed is where your heart is. Your breath terminates into your heart. From your heart, blood flows into your body. And if you are in a deep state of relaxation now, you can literally bring presence to your heart. You can feel your heart beating. You can feel the blood pouring out of this seed and pouring into your arms and your legs, and most importantly, the blood rushes up through your neck. Feel it especially at the back of your neck, pumping up into your brain. You have a presence of I and thinking situated somewhere around your head. Now become aware that your head, your brain, your thoughts, they're just another organ, like your arm or your leg. They are just like another branch of the tree and another petal of a flower. But they are not your core. They again grow out and are generated by the seed of your being. You can feel the blood going up into your brain and giving life and sustenance to it. So be aware of your heart. We are descending now into the heart cave. And at this stage, you should be absolutely, acutely aware that you are something which breathes. I am breathing. I breathe. I live. I am aware of my actions. Now, in the same way, as you are aware of your head and your brain and your thoughts, go inside yet again. You have gone into the depths of your body. You are in the center of your mind. Come now again deeper. You are a mind, you are a body. You do not need to worry about what their connection is. You are both mind-body. You are a soul, both physical and immaterial, both acting and thinking and feeling. Be aware of all your thoughts. You can think whatever you want. Allow yourself to think. But be aware that you are not those thoughts. You are the source of those thoughts. Become aware of the thoughts as like waves upon a stormy sea, cast up by thick and rough winds. Even the wind of your breath, which is a mighty tempest. Whatever you have, whether it be slight feeling in relaxation or intense emotional anguish, let the sea rage or let it be still, but come now into the depths of the sea. Visualize yourself in the depths of the sea, between thick darkness, utterly suspended. If you are afraid or panic, know that fear and panic are again thoughts. Let them be, but they exist upon the surface of the sea. They are not here. The surface can be stormy, but here in the depth of the sea, you are utterly at peace, not aware that there even is a storm. Know now, therefore, that you are the source of the breath. As you came into the presence of your body, and now into the center of your mind, know that every thought that I think, every breath that I breathe, every act that I enact is not me truly, but is my effect. I am the source of my thoughts. I am the source of my breath. Be now at the root of all your thoughts. Like your thoughts again are a tree, and you are come down into the stem of that tree, and down into its root. As your thoughts are waves upon a stormy sea, but you are the depth of that sea. You are water itself. With each breath, allow yourself to sink deeper and deeper into the thick darkness of this cave of the heart, not only in body, but in mind. Now allow your sight, your hearing, your thinking, your feeling, both your body and your mind, to recede into this seed at the root of the root of the root of your heart. Visualize this infinitely small speck at the very core of your being, like a black hole. And your entire being is being pulled and sucked into this black hole. And so your sight goes. You close your eyes and there is only darkness. And so your hearing goes. Things become muffled and recede into a faint whisper, which again is blotted out. If you feel panic or fear, know that this fear, like a black poison, is again being pulled into this black hole, and as it collapses into it, it dies, and the fear is gone. Allow all your thoughts of your mind, and even my voice that you listen to, like a trail of vapor, slowly and gently recede into this black hole, that you become nothing. Now in this dark space, in this dark cave, where there is no place nor time, I want you to become aware of what remains. You can now very, very gently open again your hearing. Become aware of the very slight sounds at the edge of your room. Perhaps the hum of your computer, the whir of the fan. Try to become aware of the most slight sound that you can hear between the spaces of sound. And very gently allow presence to come back to your body, beginning with the tips of your fingers and your toes. And very gently open your eyes just slightly and know that while you have been reborn from this seed, like a plant shooting forth a small bud, breaking out from its seed, in this halfway state of dream and imagination, you can see your sight break forth, your hearing cast open from the seed of your heart. While you come back into the presence of your body, allow the presence of that empty darkness inside of you to linger. It does not do anything. It is not something. It simply is. It is. I am. Does not care whether you love yourself or hate yourself, whether you are happy or are sad, whether you are awake or you are asleep, whether you are enlightened or ignorant. It simply is, because it is the ground of your being, the root of your becoming. That seed at the root of yourself, that pure spark of being itself, is what we mean by the spirit. Now, this meditation was perhaps, I think, 10 minutes in total. I'm not sure. With practice, you can do everything that I said in 1 second. You can perform the descent into the cave in a single moment. With practice, perhaps the experience was very faint to begin with. You either had a feeling of this seed of the spirit, but it was very faint. Or maybe it was so vague you weren't really sure what it was. But with practice, you can deepen into this intensity of this experience, and you feel it stronger and stronger, and you can do it quicker and quicker. And now you might say that, but this is clearly a thought we have, side of the mind. The mind is produced by the brain. And were I not breathing, were there no oxygen in my brain, I would not be thinking. This entire idea is again a thought, which is generated by the seed. The whole idea that you live in a body is a thought. And the thought comes out of the seed. And if you were to literally see yourself, if you could literally see your thoughts like embers of fire crackling forth from this invisible flame, and you could see that thought that my consciousness is produced by a brain, this thought trailing out from the spark of your being, you would know absolutely that you are that spark. And there is no thought possible which could ever refute that, because you have connected to something deeper than thinking. Now, this is the beginning of spirituality. The descent into the heart cave, the descent into the self, the dark night of the soul, is either something which may come after years and decades of spiritual training. It may be something which you are naturally gifted with. Some people are spiritual from the get-go. And I think there's a high chance you most likely are if you are listening to this video. You have probably always known this intuitively. Not everyone does, and you should not take that for granted. And you should be patient with people who don't understand this. Perhaps this came to you through a difficult moment in your life. Perhaps through intense depression or anguish or physical pain. You realized that there is an indestructible seed inside of yourself. And you realized that you are not this body, neither this mind, but that these are images and representations projected out from a deeper source. That there is a wellspring of meaning, an infinite ocean inside of you. That is what this video is about. When we speak of spirituality, we really speak of the spirit. By the spirit, we simply mean what is fundamental inside of you. The word spirit, in actually almost every language, is derived from the idea of breath. Or rather, breath is derived from the spirit. Spiritus in Latin, animus in Greek, ruh in Arabic, from rih. The breath emanates from the spirit. Because when you breathe, there's an in and an out. And this duality of two things is the fundamental way of the mind. The mind categorizes things according to dualities, this or that, right or wrong, X or Y. But all duality must be rooted in a unity, because one comes before two. What is the one, the ground of unity, from which the breath emanates? That is the spirit. It is the root, the essence, the seed of yourself, and the absolute core of your being. Now, I thought about how to phrase this video, and as I said, I wanted to be more of a conversational style. I wanted to speak a bit about myself somewhere, and I thought of perhaps beginning with the idea of a spiritual journey, then explaining myself, but to make this more personal and meaningful, I will give just a brief introduction to my own journey, which I don't think I've done before on this channel. So people don't actually know where I've come from and what I'm doing here. But my journey perhaps begins in the opposite direction to most people. Whereas many people come to spirituality and this realization at some stage or later in life particularly, I was really born into it. And this idea of the spirit was rooted into me as early as I can remember. And I'm very atypical in that regard, though obviously no one has any idea if they're normal or not normal, but it's something you realize throughout life. And it's taken me a long time to really realize that. But I was, for many reasons, maybe I can speak about this in another video later on, but I really spent all of my youth alone for various things. Literally, all my childhood memories are of me sitting alone in my room, or of me walking alone to places. In that aloneness, yes, loneliness, absolutely, but more than loneliness, in that aloneness, I was absolutely and utterly aware that there is something deeper to this world and that I am that depth. I suppose if you have a very high degree of abstraction and of psychological hyper meta awareness, you not only see through consciousness, but you can see consciousness itself. Like glasses, right? I'm looking at the world, and if I don't think about it, I just see the laptop in front of me or I see the door in front of me. But if I expand my field of awareness, wait, I see around the trim of my vision this black frame, and I'm like, wait, uh, there's something in front of me. I have glasses. There's a lens I'm seeing through. In fact, if you go even deeper, you can do the same thing with your eyes. If you are extremely subtle and still, you might notice that as your heart beats with your pulse, your eye or your vision literally slightly pulsates alongside it. And you can easily bring your awareness to the fact that you have an eyeball embedded into this eye socket. If you go deeper, you can really feel the inside of your eye, and you can really feel that there's a stem at the back rooted into your brain. That's what I'm saying, that you are extremely aware that not only are you conscious, but that you are seeing through the lens of consciousness. And in the same way, you can look at consciousness. And that's really what I spent all of my life doing. And the word we might use for this now is mindfulness meditation or some type of self-reflective meditation. But I was naturally doing this. And so when I was very young, right, 4, 5, and 6, I came to realizations about the nature of reality, things which I intuitively just knew for certain. One of these was solipsism, that I am the only thing which exists. And by that, I mean, I don't need to explain it too much because you either know it or you don't, but of course I don't mean I as this physical thing. I mean the self with a capital S is all that there is. That the world is a projection of me. To me, it was very obvious, and it is obvious, that I don't live inside of the world. The world is a projection of my consciousness. Material things are projected out by me. I generate them. Like a computer program, you click execute or compile, and it generates whatever it is. And again, you can literally turn your awareness inward and see the source code of reality. You see the lines of code which are generating reality. Now, of course, if I was spending my life doing this, you might ask, well, what about actually living and being a normal human being? Well, that's the trouble, right? So my journey is in reverse. I began in this absolute darkness of the heart cave. I began in this absolute darkness of mystical knowing something which I could not articulate in words. And I was feeling this, but I could not express it in words because I did not have the vocabulary. And so the intense loneliness which came with this aloneness, and also the intense disparity between knowing that there is something meaningful, that there is an absolute ground and foundation, yet witnessing the brutality of life, not just for myself, but really more for others. I was more moved by what happened to other people around me, just reading things as well, knowing what happens in history, knowing the absolute brutal, senseless nature of life sometimes. It was very difficult to reconcile the fact that, yes, something is meaningful, there's a source to all this, there's a root of being which is generating it, but yet the despair, the anguish, and also the ignorance. Because if you have these realizations, you have to realize that people around you probably will not have them. And in fact, they may react very emotionally, even to the idea of spirituality. The idea that there is something more than your body, because people are scared by this idea. They are scared by going inside. As in our meditation, you have to go down into this dark cave. You have to go down into the thick darkness and the depths of the ocean. And people do not want to do that. So struggled for years and years with this. Really went through very, very profound depression and despair, to the way which can only be described as infinite pain at certain times. And this is one of the realizations which many people have going through life, that hell exists, right? Hell is real because we can experience the reality of hell in this lifetime. And it's not just the pain which makes hell hell, it's meaninglessness which is really hell. Hell is reality itself dissolving like a liquid, unmeaningless grey slime and goo oozing everywhere. Imagine physical things burning down into molten magma and undescribable, indistinguishable, vague compound of everything just melted down into a senseless mixture. Hell is that, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. Imagine all your memories, identities, everything which you think is meaningful melted down. That is the world as we experience it, especially if you are a spiritual person, because you feel so intensely and deeply. When you see meaning mistreated, to see a human being mistreated, to see the environment mistreated, to see anything mistreated, you see that meaning boiled down into something meaningless. That is hell. But of course, many people get lost in this level, and I think quite understandably, because it's very hard to pull yourself out of this. You can't logically try to flip this around and go up into heaven. And ultimately, there's again, when you go through this, you realize that there's more to this than just you. So if you go through this solipsist awakening, you deepen into that and realize that, okay, but the I is not just this limited ego, because you will encounter presences and realities beyond your ego. And again, this is a long story, and maybe at some later date I can really flesh this out in more detail. But when I was in secondary school, when I was, I think, around 14 years old, after having these thoughts and feelings for over 10 years and literally having no outlet, not being able to speak to anyone about it, having felt it and witnessed it and realized it for 10 years, and just keeping it inside of me, truly contemplating that I was mad. I genuinely thought that I was insane, but then I came to the conclusion very quickly that no, I am sane and people around me are insane. And I think that's quite obvious. Simply because I think, and people do not think. That the idea that I can be insane is, I mean, maybe I am, but the idea that other people are sane is insanity. Most human beings do not even think. Most human beings do not even think about what existence is or what they are. And this is a strong message I have to you if you are watching this video. You cannot let others dictate your reality. That is one of the most spiritually destructive things you can ever do. You cannot let someone who does not even think control or determine or judge your thoughts in any way possible. And going through this, and if there's one message I have to people who are in a spiritual hell, is to have absolute faith in yourself, in your spirit. That there is something inside of you which can call you out and guide you. That there are things beyond your ego which can help you and bring you out. And so with radical, literally I mean radical self-belief, you can proceed. And I think if I had to Obviously, these things are a mystery, but what happened in that year when I was around, I think, 14 in secondary school, I think I was in a period of absolute self-confidence and certainty. And I had not been doing well in school at all up until then. In fact, I was doing pretty badly, both academically and also socially, just getting in trouble a lot. So obviously doing bad socially and psychologically, I mean, that's a given. And not doing well spiritually. And I'll speak about religion in a bit as well. And again, that's another story, but it goes without saying that, I mean, the idea of religion is meaningless without spirituality. And that's just absolutely evident. So I think for many people, unless you have a truly spiritual environment, if you think about things, the idea of religion is just not even an idea for you until later, perhaps. Because most religious people do not think about religion. It's just a cultural activity. It's just societal thing that handed down. So, and this is a common thing, right? In for people who are searching for the truth and searching for spirituality. I think you need to go through a period of time where you discover some things on your own, without anything else, without another human being, without an external structure. But one thing I will add is that actually spiritual scriptures were very helpful. Hmm. I was very interested in religion in general this time. I was obviously born into a Muslim family, so I would read the Quran. Also, I'd just read many scriptures. As I'd read many, would read the Bible, mystical interpretations, many Eastern religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, of course. And this is again something which occurs, I think, very naturally. If you're looking for what is true, you'll try to, I mean, the first locus of truth is religion. And I would highly recommend people to look at religious scriptures with a completely empty perspective. Again, it goes back to yourself. You need to trust your own interpretation and connection to it above everything else. And even the idea that whatever this is a book. Again, you have to destroy this idea that there are no books. There are no people. The idea that someone wrote this, that someone said it. That's just an idea and a thought you have. The idea that there is something which exists 100 years ago or 2000 years ago, that is just an idea that you have in your mind. It's a message. You log onto the internet, you see something, it's a message. Treat everything that you see as a message. Because if you've come this far, you should know that this idea of cause and effect is a story, and it can be a true story or it can be a false story. And if the story is coming through society, well, what do we just say about society? It's constituted of people who don't even think. You should not be paying attention to this story. Should not be paying serious attention to the idea of history. Again, we're not going to destroy these and put them aside, but you have to build it up. And that is not the foundation. And you cannot be making life decisions based upon what people have told you. I mean, coming back here, maybe I'm drawing this out a bit, but going through that, having come to this period of self-confidence, I think really internalized that the only way out of this situation, out of hell, is through me. I have to do this myself. I have to, in my own mind and my own intuition, find the way out. I have this intuition of the absolute reality that it is there, that there is something deeper. I know how to do that. For my entire life, I've been meditating. And at this stage, I think I came to the realization, or I discovered what spirituality and meditation and philosophy are. Not seriously, really, just through internet readings, but that was enough. I knew that there is something called philosophy. I knew that there is something called spirituality. I knew that before this. I didn't know what religion was really in its essence, but now I know that what religion is trying to do is that it's expressing this fundamental nature of reality in words. I had all these things. I had the confidence to think myself. One night, while thinking, and not just thinking, but truly meditating, I allowed, and really it happened to me, I wasn't doing anything, but all this intense experience culminated. And years and years and years of this anguish, of this longing, of this despair, really absolutely self-destructive ideas came to a culmination, to a climax. And again, like out of this swirling tempest of the world and the forms of the world, I realized there is an axis, that there's a singularity to behind all the forms. Really, that was what I would say the first spiritual awakening that I had. And that to me was one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had. And I did not see God and his angels throng out from the heavens. I didn't see any prophet in front of me. I didn't see any light pouring through my windows. I didn't feel some ghostly touch penetrate into my heart. I just knew this to be true. I just felt it very strongly. But more profoundly, I understood, and again, I don't know how much of this will resonate to you when watching, but it's like I had a knowledge, and I understood this knowledge so deeply, it's literally heavy. It's literally burning hot. It's something I can cut through reality with, can cut through appearances. It was absolute certainty, yaqeen in Arabic. And to this day, I can tell you that this knowledge is so utterly profound and deep that when I speak of this philosophy, I cannot express how deeply I understand it. I'm not saying I'm special. I think anyone who realizes this, I'm saying that this is what the spiritual experience is like, right? I'm giving the story not to say that I'm like the new prophet or sage. I'm saying that this is my experience of the spiritual journey. May be the same for you, it may be very different, but I think there'll be some commonalities. And in many, over 10 years later, I can now tell you that what really makes it spiritual, now having really verified this and understood it, is that it's not really seeing something or something happening to you, some type of miracle or supernatural occurrence. I think these things can happen, but really they're not that important. It depends on the person. I don't think I really need these things. It's the knowledge which is most important. I don't mean book knowledge. I do not mean information. I mean understanding. Literally understanding, standing under the world, going under reality, standing with the foundation of being. So I realized that what I call the oneness of being is the absolute reality. That there is one absolute that I think I'll go here and come back there. That I won't get too deep into philosophy now. I won't bore you with that. But as you can see, in 2013, many years ago now, like over 10 years ago, started to write this stuff up. And very simply, could finally express this intuition, which I always had, with these words, this very mathematical idea of singularity and form, or what you might call oneness and manyness. Very simply, before manyness must be oneness. That you can't conceive a part of a circle without knowing what the circle is. If you did not know what a circle is, well, you would not possibly be able to know what the part of a circle, what the segment is. But if you know the segment of a circle, well, you must know the circle. The same way, if I know something, I must know the whole thing because something is some, it's a part of some whole. I would not even be able to know that thing as that thing were it not for my knowing the whole. As Plato said, everything has a reality, an essence, an archetype. I look at the table which I'm sat at, and I know it's a table. But there's another table and another table, and the same table is there in time, and maybe it changes over time, but it's the same thing, right? It's a singularity. It has all these forms, these different manifestations, appearances, but it's the same table. So reality is configured like this. I mean, this is the absolute nature of reality. That forms come back to singularities. Then you can go further. Well, the singularity has to go back to another singularity. The point of unity is grounded in a deeper unity. And now you really abstract. And you don't just go bigger, but you go deeper and deeper into the absolute foundation. What is the ground of being? It must be the absolute singularity, the absolute source of oneness, of which everything else is a form. That absolute singularity is what we mean by God. It is the oneness of being, right? And you have to understand that God is a word we use to denote the absolute ground of everything. And God in German, to my understanding, in ancient Germanic, means the one or the thing which is called, because the limit or the ground of being is like an infinite limit, right? If you know mathematics, you have 1 over, think of 1 over n, a sequence 1, 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5. You get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? 1 over a million, 1 over a trillion. The end of that sequence is zero. But zero is never inside of the sequence. There's never a point in the sequence where it becomes zero. So the singularity of the sequence comes infinitely at an infinite stage afterwards. It's not inside of it. And this is important because the singularity of being, the oneness of being, is not inside of being. And that's why people have not found God, because they're looking. And that was your problem. You were looking for God. God's not there to be found because the source of all being is not inside of being. Of course, it's not some physical object, can't be the universe, can't be a thought. Even the idea of infinity, of absoluteness, is still an idea which must have a source. The absolute ground of all being cannot even be thought of. It is inconceivable. And saying all this, and you know, as I started writing, I'd basically articulate all these, what I just said in a series of paragraphs. You can even go to this website and read it if you want. I wouldn't recommend it, it's very old. But this was me articulating the spiritual vision that I had. Seeing, and again, I was not theorizing, and I am not theorizing, at least not in the way we understand it. If you mean by theory, theoria in ancient Greek as in vision, then yes, I'm a theorist. I see and I saw and I see the nature of reality, and I, as a poet, describe or sing forth in a musical cadence the rhythm of reality. Again, I'm not saying I'm special. I'm saying that as we go forward, any philosopher, prophet, sage, mystic basically has done this. That this journey I have had is a journey which anyone spiritual has had and will have. And the forms, to use the same language, right? Forms of a singularity, of a general archetype. Yes, the circumstance will change. That doesn't matter. It really just does not matter how it happens. It doesn't really matter how you phrase it. It's not important. The reality, the meaning, the idea is important. And now the self with a capital S, the spirit, as we were saying before, that is your singularity. The work we were just doing was a collapse of form into singularity, the circle unto the center. And this entire work, as I said at the beginning of the video, the straight path, going straight into the center of being, is that. Because anything other than straight will miss the center. If you're at the edge, the circumference of the circle, you must go exactly straight to get into the center. And even 1 degree off will curve and exponentially go astray. You have to be exactly right, which again is why I speak of radical self-faith. And I'll even say it here, I'll give away the biggest secret. The reality of faith, right? We speak of, so many religions speak of faith. Iman in Arabic is self-faith. It's having faith in yourself. That's the ultimate reality. Now, it will not be said like that explicitly, because the average person will think that, oh, I need to have faith in my ego and therefore satisfy my lusts and my desires, right? As I said, people don't think. You have to understand that people do not think. So philosophy and religion cannot be expressed as it is, because people will just not understand it. You have to express it in a way that they will understand, they who do not think. And that's why, for example, in the Quran, the message of the book is to think. Ultimately, there's very little dogma. There's very little, absolute axioms that you must do this and obey this. That's what true reality is about. And same thing with any religion. If you really study it, it's calling you to connect with that which is real. But coming back now, and let's put the picture together. So I spoke about my story, spoke about the idea of spirituality, the idea of reality. Going more general, how does spirituality work? Well, the sad thing is I can't express the beginning. The beginning is to actually begin. No one can make someone begin the spiritual journey. You have to begin on your own. And so some people haven't begun, and this video will just not make sense to them, and they wouldn't have even got to this stage. The beginning is having a flash, a revelation. And what's amazing is as you really start to realize these things, the language of religion starts to make so much sense. It's literally revelation, a flash. The Bible speaks of the thunder of revelation frequently, as Moses who went up to Mount Sinai and beheld the august glories of God flashing down unto him in lightning and fire and thunder. It's not arbitrary language. This is reality. That the oneness of being, the I at the center of everything, revealed itself. Just for one moment, you get the flash of the absolute oneness of which everything is a part, that everything is rooted in singularity, that everything is a form of God. And in that flash, it's like the eye opens up, the eye of God. And you can see everything in that eye, because it is everything. But that's just a flash. And it may happen so quickly, be so furtive and surreptitious, that you can't get anything out of it tangible. Which is fine, but you know that it's there. And going back, I suppose that's what was happening to me when I was young. And I was designed like that because if you just spend a lot of time alone, I believe it will happen naturally. That's why religions speak about solitude. Again, you'll see the pieces coming together. But you can't do this arbitrarily, but in the right environment, just being alone, solitude, contemplating, that will lead you to this revelation. Right? There's a famous saying of the Prophet Muhammad who said that one moment of contemplation is better than 1,000 years of worship. It's not about doing things. I am worshipping. It's not about some action. It's about being. Contemplation is when you realize being. Contemplation is not thinking. It's complete stillness and self-realization. So the flash occurs between thick darkness. But we as fallible human beings fall back into that darkness. The lightning blast of revelation sounds in the dark night. But when it is gone, we stand still and are aghast and alone and agape. We go back into our heedlessness, and unfortunately, sometimes for many people, that's it. They just go back and there's no change. But through real spiritual intention, the flash will come back. If you want it, it will come back. Now the flash will widen. It's like if you've teared open this small, tiny hole in reality. With practice, when you can concentrate deeper, when you have less distraction, when you are less tethered by the surly bonds of this earth and this body and this ego identity, you can concentrate upon this I for a bit longer. The duration of the flash increases, and the depth of it will increase. You can see through it more. Before you just knew it was there. You just knew that there is an absolute singularity. Now you begin to actually see that singularity. And through spiritual training and practice, the flash will not only deepen, last for longer, but most importantly, it happens more frequently. And now, enlightenment is when that flash just becomes your sight. And I will preface that I am not enlightened, right? I have not achieved that stage. But I hope that God will allow me to realize it, because I know it is our destiny. It is human destiny to be enlightened. That's what God wants. That is the will of God. That is the ultimate will of all reality. And I know that. I have seen that. So it's not something you should worry about. Worry and this kind of lust towards it. I want that flash. That will distance it from you. But you have to have faith. And this is why, again, religions speak about this reality of faith. Faith is not, some people define faith as believing something you can't see. Again, remember what I said, people do not think. People who do not think will say that. It's the exact opposite. Faith is having seen the flash and therefore hoping in it and trusting in it. That is faith. I have faith in divine revelation. I have faith in my spirit. I have faith in God. I have faith in the absolute nature of reality. It's not arbitrary. It's absolute. Because I've literally seen it. And I go back into the darkness. But I know the darkness is false. I go back into society, and all of society tries to brainwash me. I know they're wrong. My faith is not in what people tell me, it's in myself. That is faith. Radical self-belief. You must understand this if you want to proceed with your spiritual journey. You must put faith correctly. Right? You have to understand what it means to put faith in God. There are people who have been praying to God for decades, and they don't understand what it means. You must understand. You have to learn this. We all do. I am still learning. It's a continuous process of learning. But now, you see, this is the flash, the oneness of being and the unity of existence and the harmony of all creation, singularity and form, and singularities of singularities, this vast lattice, this emanation of multiplicity, shining out through the eye of unity, grounded in the oneness of being, grounded in God. That's what all of this is. And that's why, as we go forward, you see that this is a real path. This is real wisdom. It is philosophy, theosophy in the highest sense. What's the next slide? Yes, every true philosophy and theology and spiritual tradition is saying exactly the same thing in just a different language. But it is this, that there is the oneness of being, the oneness of God in the absolute center, the mystical center which is not inside of the universe or inside of the mind, but is beyond it, pulsating outwards. You see, the people who designed these mosques and churches and temples, the architects, the poets, the sages, the prophets from whom it emerges, they all beheld the oneness of being to varying degrees. As I said, the duration and the intensity of the flash will be different. But having seen that, how did the artist do this? Right, absolutely stunning, almost inhuman artwork, sublime, divine, august, majestic. Where does this work of consummate beauty come from? In artistry and artifice, in poesy and music, in human development and sport and athleticism, and science and philosophy. It comes because they literally saw it. They weren't inventing this. This was not creativity. If you think creativity is some type of invention, all of this is participation. They were participating in the great dance of the universe. They were twirling along with the great spiral of the galaxy and all being. And as they did that, they spontaneously, intuitively, naturally gave birth to such beauty. And if you dance and twirl at the center of reality along the flow of God, if you are one with the flow of God, you become godly. Right? The word muttaqi, taqwa in Arabic, literally means godliness. And I spoke about this before. That's what all the religions are saying. Godliness, piety, righteousness. It means becoming one in unity with God, dissolving yourself into the ground of being, being aligned as a form of God. Because a form of something, a form of the singularity, is the singularity. Right? This table is a form of the archetype of a table. But that means it's a table. A blue pen is a form of the singularity of blueness, by which it is actually blue. God is absolute being. To be a form of God is therefore to be. The very fact that thou art, that I am, that is the greatest possible spiritual connection and realization and knowledge that you will ever have. That alone, that I am, ana mawjood, that is all you need to attain absolute and consummate gnosis and divine realization. Because if I am a being, if I am mawjood, my being must be a form of being itself, absolute being, al-wujudul mutlaq. And that's it. When you realize that realization, you will be a sage. And when that realization overtakes you, and you become a form of that realization, right? When that realization becomes you, you will be enlightened. And it really is as simple as that. These flashes are a form of ecstasy, God drunkenness. You are dissolved and completely just drowned in God. But you come back because you are a human being, you are not God, right? We're still grounded. We're not, if you were God, you wouldn't come back to yourself at all. We come back to the body, to the ego. It's there, it's real. And you have to affirm this at the same time. This is why spirituality is so hard. It's people think this is paradoxical. But again, what did I say about people? Fill out the words on your own. It's not paradoxical. It just takes time to understand this and integrate. There's nothing contradictory about this. That your absolute being is God, but that you are still you and not God. We're speaking about perspectives. The root of your spirit is God. And the amazing thing is that scripture literally says this word for word. Ar-ruhu min Allah. Nafakh Allahu min ruhihi. Right, in Arabic, on this biblical idea that God breathed his spirit into man. It is so obvious. It's too good to be true. This is what puts people off. The absolute reality that you're looking for is hidden in plain sight. This absolute equation, the theory of everything, this absolute equation which governs all reality is just this. I am, right? I am a being, therefore I am rooted in absolute being. It's probably easier to say in Arabic because Arabic is nicely designed, but that's all. I exist, I am, therefore I am is rooted in amness, in being, right? The verb I am goes back to the abstract noun of being. So you come back into your being from the absolute. From ascending the high mountain, you come back with this wisdom inscribed upon the tablet of your heart and soul. That is philosophy. True philosophy is a communication from the deep. Min al-ghayb. And that's the work I am doing is this. The philosophy of the oneness of being. Delineating this abstract metastructure of reality, which is the same absolute structure of every true philosophy and religion. I think philosophy is necessary to different degrees for different people. Depending upon how, I suppose, intellectual or abstract that you are, you will need more philosophy. Some people need less. They have a realization and they're happy with that. They don't need to put it into words. But you need to have a simple language at least. You need to have a language of philosophy to articulate your um, spiritual experience. And that's needed for this path because the key here is illumination. How do you widen the flash and deepen the intensity? Philosophy is one thing. Philosophy will help you to integrate your spirituality into your life. And you need to, again, I have other videos and I will make more videos, but philosophy is not just studying Plato and Aristotle. Actually, all science is philosophy, natural philosophy, right? Physics, chemistry, biology. the human side of philosophy, studying languages and literature and law, studying real wisdom, knowledge, education. That's how you deepen and truly understand and integrate this spiritual realization. But now, coming here, the most interesting one really is theology. That we have this abstract universal thing. But, and again, I'm happy to speak about this more in another video to further highlight my story. But I mean, I realized that this realization, at least for me, is extremely intense. Like, this is no joke. People have to understand this is not fun and games. We're not playing around. This is no joke. I almost died from this. And I have to say this literally almost killed me. Physically as well. My body was literally being destroyed by the weight of this. My mind was going. I was going insane and mad because it was too strong. So I realized that a structure is very important. And I think I really understood after in the years following this spiritual realization and the oneness of being, going from throughout high school. I'll give a full biography at some stage. I mean, afterwards I studied mathematics for reasons which are clear, I think, to develop this philosophy and understand structure. But afterwards I studied theology, and that was part of the plan. I really understood what religion is. And, I do not believe in proselytization at all. And again, I have to preface this. People do not think. So you can't understand what religion is by what people say it is or by how people practice it. Honestly, I say this very straightly. I do not socialize. I do not socialize with religious people, or non-religious for that matter. I simply do not, because people do not think. They don't know what they're saying. This is not fun and games, and I can't stress this enough. It's not some type of debate where you get a book out and try to convince someone of doing something. It's not a joke. This is truth. This is reality. This only makes sense once you've understood the oneness of being and witnessed the singularity of all things. That the greatest philosophy, this is where I'm coming to, the greatest philosophy is religious scripture. Because in let's begin with the Bible. I mean, I know more about the Abrahamic religions, but same thing with the Vedas, the Hindu tradition, the Buddhist tradition comes out of the Hindu tradition. It all goes back to a book. Every major religion which exists, and if it don't exist, it's because of this, goes back to a scripture, the Bible, right? For Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and the Quran is basically the Bible. You have to understand it like that. Hinduism all goes back to the Vedas. This scripture, the tablet, right, was the oneness of being absolutely and perfectly conveyed in a language. That's why, and all of these religions, the Abrahamic and the Hindu religions, they have an idea that the scripture is literally the word of God. It's not the word of whoever wrote it, it's the word of God. That's because the person who wrote it, the prophet really, was someone of immense, absolutely perfect spiritual capacity. Right? Some people in history, we call them prophets, sages, mystics, some human beings, the Einsteins of spirituality, they become absolutely one with reality. They attain perfect, consummate unity with God. And so when they are speaking forth something, it is God speaking through them. That is what religion is. Simple as that. Full stop. That is what the Bible is. That is what the Vedas are. That is what the Quran is. Simple as that. Again, people come, people don't think, so they don't understand any of this. and they make it into a game. And 99.99% of religion, what people think religion is just a game. And it's extremely sad to see, unfortunately. But also it is human nature, so you must understand that, and you have to accept the way things are, right? And this is the will of God, that the truth is going to be hidden. And again, what's amazing and mind-blowing is that every religion even says that. Every religion says that the truth is going to be perverted. Jesus said that to his disciples, Moses, the Prophet Muhammad. I'm not as familiar with the Eastern traditions, but I imagine it's there. Every religion says that very few people will understand this. So now you have all of these different Christians going to these different churches, Baptist, whatever, Catholic, Protestant. They think that's what Jesus was talking about. All these Muslims, same thing, different sects. They think that's what it was speaking about. Some activity. They don't understand its meaning. It's not doing something. It doesn't mean anything. It's not about doing something. It's about being something. Actually realizing the oneness of being. Because the oneness of being, if you are one with being, you become one with your family, with your friends, with society, with all of humanity, with every single living thing on earth, with every single thing in the cosmos, because everything is real and exists and is alive. To be one with the oneness of being is to be a perfect part of the myriad constellations of the cosmos. It is love. Love is unity. To love something is to become one with that thing. That's what this is. This mystical realization of oneness leads into this abstract philosophy and theology, and ultimately into ethics. You become one and harmonious and whole. You become whole. You achieve happiness. You achieve peace. You achieve self-understanding, unconditional love for yourself and for others. You understand what your life is, what the purpose of your life is, what the purpose of each action is. You achieve moral goodness and perfection. That is the most beautiful thing. We can wrap this up, I think, but to go a bit more theoretical, again, on my side, I want to make this very personal. As I went through these experiences, I became interested in the perennial philosophy. The perennial philosophy is exactly this deep wisdom, the belief that every religion, every faith tradition emanates from a single source, the primordial tradition, and that all of these are manifestations of the same tradition. And searching for unity, my work as well is, I believe, is as a theologian, to find the transcendental unity of religions and establish dialogue. I have found that in the synthesis of the Eastern and the Western, really the Abrahamic religions and the Eastern Dharmic religions. Those are the two great faith traditions which exist. Hmm. And I personally find that in the Islamic faith, which is the synthesis of the Jewish, the Christian, and thus the Islamic. However, again, most Muslims don't understand this. They think Islam is some type of separate thing, that you have these things separately, and that it's new. It's nothing new about this. It's all one. We need to go forwards and backwards. So one work I engage in is integrating all of the Bible into one book. We need to have the entire Bible, right? The Hebrew, the Greek, and the Arabic as a single book. As we understand the Hebrew Bible, the Jewish scripture, the Greek Bible, the Christian scripture, the Arabic scripture also needs to be a part of that. And if you only have the Jewish and Christian, there's clear things wrong with that, right? It's incomplete. Simple as that, it's incomplete. But same thing, if you only have the Arabic scripture, it's incomplete. And we find that there's many things structurally unsound in the way that the intellectual structure of Islam is currently presented, because the historical dimension is lacking. But moreover, there's another synthesis which needs to happen, which is with the Eastern religions as well, because those cannot be ignored. And that's a deeper tradition, or that's a deeper synthesis which needs to take place, which, I mean, this will take work, right? I don't have the answers now. I don't have the answers. But one thing I will say, and again, many people come to me and ask me these questions. Many people come from different religious backgrounds, and one thing I never do is try to proselytize. I never tell someone that you should, be this religion or do this thing. I don't agree with that or believe in that. The truth is the truth, right? If you find the truth, you found the truth. And if whatever's right will manifest in the end, there's no need to do anything. But I think everyone needs some structure. At least I have found spirituality to be very hard, almost impossible without some structure. So you should be a theologian. If you are spiritual, you should be a philosopher. You should also be a theologian. That means studying religion seriously. And again, you don't have to use labels. As I said, I don't socialize with people. I don't go out and say that I am this or I am that. I know what I am. God knows what I am. You don't have to worry about presenting yourself in a certain way. The more spiritual you become, the more you embrace and develop spirituality, you completely leave behind this idea of names and symbols. We see this all the time. The great mystics in every place, ultimately, they lived a life of aloneness because people did not understand them. There are so many great, for example, the Sufi mystics of Islam. Most of them ultimately would just live by themselves because you achieve a state of realization which is incommunicable to people who don't want to listen to it, who want to see multiplicity rather than unity. But there's great absolute unity, realizing that the will of God is multiplicity and harmony, that all the bright colors of people, physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, should thrive together in one beautiful cosmic harmony. That is the divine purpose and plan and will. That is the great consummation of the world and the universe. That is the end of time. That is what spirituality leads to this realization. But again, you should be a theologian and you should study these things. And if there's two religions I recommend studying, it's Islam and Hinduism. Islam will take care of Judaism and Christianity, if you study it correctly, that is. That covers the entire Abrahamic thing. The Abrahamic faith, the Abrahamic tradition, is the most important tradition in the world, at least half of it. And then Hinduism will cover the entire eastern part, because most of even the East Asian religions ultimately go back in some stage to Hinduism. Maybe some ancient Chinese things may be an exception, but that is the grand synthesis. And afterwards, you do as you will, right? I will never um, impart certain injunctions, and no one does really, right? You take it or you leave it. You do what you will, but do study. You should study these things and come to your own understanding. And you have to pursue again your radical self-belief. Last thing, just to finish off, what are the esoteric dimensions of these religions, these philosophies teaching, to give you something very practical now? I will explain all of alchemy in like 2 minutes. Alchemy is the magnum opus, the great work, the greatest work. The greatest work to be done in this world, in your lifetime, is the realization of yourself. The idea of turning lead into gold is a symbol of turning yourself, the leaden base state of yourself, your particular ego, into gold, because gold is the purest element, turning it into the realization of your transcendental self. There are three stages to that. The first is an endarkening. It is the mystical death, the dark night of the soul. That is to collapse down your ego identity. It's not to destroy it. You're not trying to kill yourself. You're trying to systematically involute it. Like a flower, you recede back into the seed. That is the dark night of the soul. That's step one. When you withdraw your ego back into you, when you lose your ego and identify with the ground of your being, then there's a new growth, a rebirth. You come down into the seed and you are reborn. And you may have to do this multiple times, right? You go through one ego death to rebuild yourself, so to remove your childhood trauma, right? You have to kill that. Come down into the seed, regrow. When you regrow, you have to lose the trauma. And the deeper it is, the harder it is going to be to do. Like a tree, right? It's easy to regrow the branch at the top. If it's really, really deep down, if it's something in your childhood, you're going to have to go very deep. So don't do it aggressively, just do it continually, gently. It will work. Withdraw, regrow. Exactly what we did at the beginning of the video together. And as you keep doing this process, the illumination, the flashes of revelation give life to you. You are reborn. You regenerate. Now there's an enlightening. There's a coloring. Because human beings aren't supposed to be a blank, pure white slate, right? We have our own particularities, and that is beautiful. The enlightening is also a coloring, just for you to take that individual color of light which you are, just to allow the pure white light to disperse into its spectrum, because that is humanity and that is the entire world. The light of God dispersing into many colors and forms. Now you take that color which you are. That's why it's actually a reddening in traditional alchemy. A yellowing or a reddening. That is gold. That's the entire work. That is psychology. Don't go to a psychotherapist, they won't understand you. It's probably one of my most controversial takes of the day, but really, right, I've worked a lot with depression and people have gone through depression. Western modern psychotherapy does not understand any of this. None of it. The advice they give you is spiritually destructive. You have to follow yourself, not a psychotherapist, not someone else, not some guru. You have to do this work yourself. You can have guidance, but guidance will not do it for you. You are in control. No one but you is in control over yourself. Lastly, just to finish this up. So I've given hopefully a guide to spirituality, explained what it is, but also been quite personal and given some of my journey as well, which I really wanted to do. And hopefully this contextualizes a lot of work which we are doing on this channel, and also the work which I plan to do going forward. So I just wanted to say that this philosophy which I've been working on, the vision of the oneness of being, that's what is on my website. It's a tetralogy of books, 4 books I have written. I'm continuing to write and improve and improvise. Um, Hopefully I'll get these published sometime soon. And in this philosophy, I'm working towards a theory of everything. I use that because it sounds nice, but what do I mean by that? I mean beginning with the oneness of being, this mathematical, mystical philosophy of singularity and form, and showing how this leads into everything. That's why we begin with mathematics, we begin with language, these foundational sciences, and I want to build a complete hierarchy of the sciences. I want to build a complete and total library of all human knowledge, organized according to this mystical, spiritual root, so that every single science is a spiritual science, becomes spiritualized, including philosophy, including theology. Right, my work as a philosopher and theologian is a part of this. A grand synthesis of all human knowledge, bringing together every human society, every human tradition, science, religion into one great absolute synthesis. That's what I believe our work on earth is as human beings. That is what I know my work is in this lifetime. And that is what this educational vision here is. The holistic knowledge, holistic vision of knowledge, integrating spirituality, psychology, right? And I just diss psychology, but I mean spiritual psychology, right? Self-help. I don't like that word, but it's very common now. I mean taking this vision from the top down, beginning with the absolute singularity of the vision and drawing it out so that it culminates with that which is practical, psychological, physiological, actionable, practicable, livable. And in the end of this, we live this vision. Because what I am doing here is this, the integration, wherever it is, the integration of this vision, the integration of this flash that I had of the oneness of being. This is my purpose, my path of illumination. And if this is something you resonate with, I here invite you to participate with me, to come along this journey with me. If you want to work with me, either collaborating intellectually, spiritually, in any capacity, I invite you to reach out to me. And hopefully I'll be building more things. Do I have another slide? Yes. Get in touch. I think the link is below. You can come to my website and just reach out to me by email or whatever. And I do plan to start a proper educational program going through these courses and ideas. And hopefully, I plan to set up circles soon, both online and in person. So I hope that this will echo out into the ether. This video may go out to whoever needs to hear it and wants to hear it, and that something quite beautiful can come from this, God willing. So I shall leave that here, and hopefully see you all later.